What's up, YouTube fans? Today we're doing a comparison of the Ocular Max Probus with the Zeta Toys Uproar, both versions of a masterpiece scaled Brawl. Now, these figures came out a while ago and a few years apart. The original Zeta Toys Uproar, which was unpainted, came out in 2018, just 4 years ago. This one, the Ocular Max, came out in 2020. I think it was around April timeframe. Then Zeta Toys came back and reissued the entire set of their Combaticons with this painted job. They called it a metallic set, ZA07 metallic. That came out in 2021. Then they reissued it again with a die-cast chest piece, to make it look more G1 accurate. So this is actually from 2021, from the reissue. But either way, this original was 2018, this one in 2020, and then this one reissued again in 2021. So a couple years apart. Now, with that being said, I try to be as objective as possible with these comparisons, but of course there's subjectivity involved when you're comparing stuff like this. So if I pick one and you prefer the other, then you win. I really try to do these comparisons to help people make a decision what direction they're going. Now at this point, you've probably already made a decision which direction you're going. Me personally, I'm using these guys for the combined mode and these guys for the bot mode. But I thought this would be interesting to look at, so let's take a look. Now today we're not going to look at the combined mode. That's a totally separate thing, which would require bringing in the other bots. So we're just going to look at these guys in robot and vehicle mode. That being said, let's get started. We'll start off with accessories. There are the accessories they both come with. Now, the Ocular Max one, it does come with an additional ratchet for the shoulder joint of Bruticus, but I'm not really counting that as an accessory for this guy because it doesn't really do anything for him. So they both come with a blaster. The Ocular Max one is kind of more cartoon accurate, but it's just this plain gray plastic, whereas the Zeta Toys is painted. It's got some silver accents on it, but it's not accurate. But there you go, both have that. And then what you're left with is the Ocular Max comes with this additional cannon, which can be used in both the robot and the vehicle modes. And it can actually be stored in combined mode. So we're going to give accessories over to Ocular Max. All right, next let's talk about the gimmicks on these two. And both of them have basically the same type of gimmicks, specifically in vehicle mode. And we're going to cover that more in vehicle mode, but they do have pretty much the same thing going on. And I already gave a point to Ocular Max for this additional accessory, so I'm not going to count that extra here. So we'll give them a tie on gimmicks. All right, next let's talk about the cartoon accuracy. In order to do that, we'll put the G1 image there so you can take a look for yourself. And this was kind of a no-brainer. It's really a waste of time. The Ocular Max is really well done compared to the cartoon, especially in the chest, the arms, the shape of the legs. They don't have the tracks sticking out here. The overall shape of the shoulders and the chest. Everything really is well done. And that's not typical. Ocular Max doesn't always go for that super hyper tune, but this one, they definitely nailed it. So we'll give accuracy to them. When it comes to sculpt, I'm also going to give that to Ocular Max. Now, I actually asked my wife what she thought of these two figures. Just showed it to them. I didn't show her the cartoon or anything. I said, which one do you prefer? And she said, this one. And I said, why? And the first thing she said was, this one's a little bit too dark. And I kind of understand that. But the second thing she said was, this one is a little too buxom. And I was like, that's pretty funny. So yeah, she's noticing the chest is just kind of proportionally off and awkward. It sticks out really far. It just looks really odd. So sculpt-wise, I think Ocular Max is just a little bit cleaner, especially in the legs area where you have the treads in the chest, and then overall the robot just seems a little bit cleaner. So we're going to give sculpt over to Ocular Max as well. Next, we'll talk about the paint on these two figures. In order to do that, we'll just point out the paint individually. On the Ocular Max, you have orange and brown on the face, yellow here for the headlights. The green, gray, darker gray is all unpainted, with the exception of these wheels here. And then a little bit of gray accents here on the bottom. And that's really it for Ocular Max. For the Zeta Toys, you've got the silver or gunmetal silver for the head, orange, copper, this sort of copperish gold paint, the blue on the headlights, the silver here, accents here. So obviously, pretty easily, Zeta Toys is going to win on paint. And it's a good quality paint. I don't have it kind of scraping off or flaking or anything like that. So we'll give paint over to Zeta. Right, next we'll talk about the build quality on these two figures. And this is an area where Ocular Max or MMC always shines. They use really good materials, really good hardware, and this is no exception, at least in the robot mode. In the vehicle mode, it's very solid. It holds together, nothing shakes on it. When you transform it, it feels like it could last 1,000, iterations. And it's got some ratchets, not a lot in the legs. It's got some ratchets. One thing that I really like is these feet are really nice and solid. But overall, it's just a good feeling robot and, solid, nice plastic. Zeta toys, now this one in particular actually feels pretty good. It's not problematic in any way, but where some of the build issues are these treads, which we'll see more in the vehicle mode, but in the robot mode, they just kind of are ugly. But this is another issue. The knee comes unpegged. It's supposed to peg into here. You can peg it as tight as you want, but it will come out as you're bending it. And so that's just a build thing, a tolerance thing. Same for some of the joints on it. Some of the joints are nice and tight, but other joints are kind of loose, so it depends. So overall, it's fine, but as far as build quality, I'm going to give that over to Ocular Max. I think they just nail it with their overall quality. All right, now let's talk about the articulation. In order to do that, we'll articulate each one individually so you can see how they work. For Ocular Max, the head is on a ball joint, goes up to there, down to there, side to side, it rotates all the way around. Nice tolerance on that joint as well. Rotation at the shoulder, it goes up to there in that joint, and then out to the side, so you can lift it up, so you can get the arm up to there. And you get, I guess, a reverse butterfly if you have it like that. But anyway, you have a rotation at the elbow. You have a double jointed elbow. It gets you past 90 degrees, but it does kind of hinder itself just due to the sculpt. So you can get past 90 degrees, but not too much. Rotation at the wrist. Individually articulated thumb on a ball joint, and then the fingers are on a single pin, but they're curled, so you can't point. Pretty much the best you can do is just get this to be sort of a trigger finger. Going to the waist, you have a rotation here at the waist. You have an ab crunch, gets you down to there. Nice ab crunch. Hip skirts will move out of the way, allow you to get the legs up to there on a ratchet. Back to here, it does get hindered by his backpack, but if you lift all that out of the way, he can't get it back. Out to the side on friction. Nice tolerances on that as well. Rotation at the thigh at a cut joint, it does break the sculpt. Single jointed knee gets you basically exactly 90 degrees. It actually might be double jointed, but just due to the way it's designed, you can't really get the double joint working. Ankle tilts out to there. You can get this down further, but basically out to there, forward and backwards, and then a toe tilt. Not a lot of forward and backward, but you can get it forward and backward, and you get a toe tilt. For the Zeta toys, the head is also on a ball joint, so it goes up to there, down to there, side to side, rotates all the way around. Shoulders rotate all the way around on this joint. They go up to there on this joint here, a double hinge. So you can go down and up just to do the transformation. You'll have a rotation at the elbow, but it just gets caught up to the way it sometimes slides back in. So you got to make sure it's pulled all the way down, and then you can get that rotation. You have a double jointed elbow, and again, it gets you past 90 degrees, but due to the sculpt, it does get caught up there. Rotation at the wrist. Single jointed fingers. Thumb is not articulated, but the fingers are on a single pin, but they're curled. So again, you can only get a trigger finger out of that. You can't get a pointing finger. Rotation at the waist. No ab crunch on this guy. Hip skirts will move out of the way. Goes up to there on friction, back to there on friction, out to the side on a ratchet, which is a weird choice to have a ratchet. One of the issues with that choice is the first click is that far out, sometimes a little too far out. So me personally, I prefer the ratchet to be forward and backwards and not out to the side. You have a single digit knee, gets you 90 degrees. Ankle tilt all the way out to there, back to there. No forward and backward, but you do get a little bit of a toe tilt there. So just due to the ab crunch alone, we're going to give it over to Ocular Max. They've got a bit more articulation in certain areas. All right, next we'll talk about the transformation and engineering on these two. And surprisingly, the transformation of both of these is pretty simple and fun. Now, I really like what they did here with this guy. It's got a lot of cool transformation steps. It's very intuitive, but this guy's also not a problem. I transformed it without any instructions the first time out of the box to all 3 modes, by the way. So very simple, intuitive, and things work. There's a couple little things here and there that stick, but overall transformation is not a problem on either of these. So I'll give them a tie. When it comes to engineering, I have to hand it to Ocular Max. They have a way of making the engineering just so cool and fun. The design of things, like just for example, the little button to extend the legs, the way the feet have these heel spurs that pop out, and then in combined mode it pulls out this other heel. It's also the all-in-one engineering where the foot is actually part of the robot for combined mode. So you don't need extra parts for combined mode. You can use the upgrade kit if you want to, but you can use these feet in combined mode as well. So I just like that engineering. So I'm going to give engineering over to Ocular Max. All right, and there they both are in their alt modes, and there's a couple things you have to do out of box on both of these, so I'll just mention that. But starting off with the Ocular Max, you do have to plug these antennas in out of box. The rest is the way it is. You do have some details. You got the rear view mirrors, some exhaust here. You have opening canopies up here. Got some molded in detail, painted silver wheels and painted treads. The treads don't move, but you do have wheels on the bottom, so it does roll nicely on those wheels. On the back, you got some painted detail for the taillights and a bunch of stuff back here, just gear or whatever. The front, you got some headlights and some hook pieces here. All that really looks good. For articulation, you can rotate the turret on a ratchet, and then this can go up and down. It can't go in and out, but that's mainly for transformation. You can also take the accessory, the gun in robot mode, that can plug in here. You can rotate it, and it can go up and down. You can also take this gun, which kind of went on his back, and that can go here, and then this can go up and down. So some nice additional features here on the Ocular Max. For Zeta, you have some details on it. So there's a little bit more panel breakup, but you got some silver paint here. These headlights actually are a separate piece that you plug in. So just get them out of the box and then plug them in here like that. You also have the antenna that plug in on the top here. You do have the opening cockpits there, or I guess the hatches that lead to the inside. Again, you've got the exhaust pieces here and something up here. Little details and accents, painted kind of chromish color. No taillights or anything on the back, kind of plain on the back. On this one, you have actual rubber treads, but they just don't work. You can't get it to roll, it gets stuck. So it looks cool, but it just doesn't function. So I would have preferred just a bunch, 4 wheels like we have on the Ocular Max. The turret does rotate on friction. It doesn't go up and down on this, and that's unfortunate. You can mount the gun here, but it doesn't come with one of these. So just because the additional features and functions and the overall look of the tank, I'm going to give it to Ocular Max. I think they just nailed the look. Right now, I'll talk about the cost on these two. And the Zeta toys at release was $60 US retail on its own. The Ocular Max Probus was $115. Now, it's a little bit tricky to talk about the cost here because this particular version of Uproar was never released on its own. It's released as a box set along with the rest of the metallic bots. So even if we up that price to $100, it's still going to come in cheaper than the Ocular Max. So we'll give cost over to Zeta Toy. And the final factor in this comparison is the Members' Choice category, where I asked my members which one they prefer based on looks and no other factors other than their own personal preference. And you can see there as a score, the Ocular Max is going to take the Members' Choice category. Now, in my last comparison, somebody mentioned I should get rid of this category because it's subjective and not objective compared to my others. And I have to tell you, this entire comparison is subjective. And if someone's telling you that they can do a comparison and it's totally objective, it's really not possible. As soon as someone starts speaking and gives their opinion on something, whether it's the sculpt or the build or the tune or whatever, it is inherently subjective. So I really like this category because it allows me to get a temperature of what the people who are watching my channel think about the figures I'm looking at. And sometimes it's different than what I think. Sometimes it matches up with what I think. So I just wanted to mention that, yes, it is subjective, member's choice, but almost every category, with exception to cost, really, and maybe articulation, everything else is very subjective. But there you go for member's choice category. So final thoughts on this comparison. You can see the score, and Ocular Max is going to destroy Zeta Toys in this comparison. And it's kind of how I thought it would turn out, which is why I waited so long to do this comparison, sort of sitting on my shelf, just, ignoring it. And I probably won't do the others. There's really no purpose in doing Swindle or any others because they're going to turn out the same way. But one thing that I didn't cover here is the combine mode. And where Zeta Toys shines is absolutely the combined mode. It is hands down the best Bruticus out there. As far as the overall look, stability, the G1 accuracy, just the imposing nature of it, it's got to be the Zeta Toys Bruticus. Now this one's kind of cool because it is the all-in-one. So you don't need any extra combining parts, right? It goes together. But it's a little bit small, and it's also a little bit weak in terms of its stability. So that's really what Zeta's strength is for, and I think that's why they made it. Now, it is nice that you get the metallic paint on these new ones, but it doesn't really bring it to the level of what these guys can do in an individual robot and vehicle mode. So that's really it for comparison. Hopefully you enjoyed this and helped you decide what you want for your collection. That's it for today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.